Hey guys, it's Mr. Eisnes. Again, continuing our series on the human body systems. This is all for test one. We've gone over the skeletal system, we've gone over the muscular system, and now we're gonna tackle what's on top of our muscles. Okay, and so that's gonna be the skin. We're gonna call this the integumentary system. Okay, so it's got a fancy name. So if you ever see integ, that's what we mean, the integumentary system. Okay, that is our skin. All right, it's somewhat complicated, but actually the biggest organ in our entire body is going to wind up being our skin. All right, it is super, super important as it's going to protect us from the outside world and allow certain things in and excrete certain things out. All right, so the functions, this is going to be your super, super, super important page. But like I said, it's an infection, or excuse me, not an infection, but it's a barrier against infection and injury. Okay, skin is able to absorb a lot of energy. And so because of that, when you have some type of contact, you fall down, that skin is actually going to absorb some of that energy so the bone doesn't have to absorb everything. So the skin and muscle kind of work together to protect your bones, and your bones are really important as they are hard, but as you may have experienced yourself, can still break if subjected to certain amounts of force. Okay, so it's a barrier. It doesn't allow microbes in. And by microbes, I mean anything microscopic. So we're talking about bacteria, we're talking about protista, we're talking about all these different things that we talked about in the first semester that can get into your body and can do some harm. Okay, and so it's really, really important that we understand that this is kind of like our cell membrane of the cell. Okay, it allows certain things in, it shoots out other things that we don't want, like sweat. Okay, and then it's going to protect us. So again, help regulate body temperature. Okay, we talked about sweat. Okay, we have sweat glands on our skin that are going to allow us to cool ourselves down when we're getting too hot. So this is a great way to make sure we maintain homeostasis and make sure that our body does not get too hot. Okay, it's also going to be a layer, and with the fatty layer of the skin is going to keep us warm. All right, so removal of waste products from the body, sweat would be one of them. Okay, anything that comes out of the body is going to be considered a waste product. It's something that we are getting rid of. All right, and then it's going to provide us protection against ultraviolet radiation. Okay, so in the sun, we call it UV light, UV radiation, and that's going to basically is what burns our skin if you get too much of it, and why you need to put on sunscreen. If you get too much UV radiation, you can get mutations in your cells, which lead to cancer. So this is really, really important to protect our internal organs, because cancer of the skin is not as difficult to deal with as cancer of other organs inside our body. Okay. And then lastly, it's the largest sense organ in the body. And so there are nerves everywhere in the skin that kind of give us information on where we're at, what we're touching, how hot it is, how warm it is, how hard it is, how sharp it is. Okay, and so that communication from the skin and those nerves that go all the way up into our brain, we're able to organize ourselves and orient ourselves in the correct direction of where we're headed, to keep us alive and safe. Okay, so pretty big role that this organ plays. All right, you need skin to survive. So let's go over the different layers of the skin. So we have our epidermis. All right, the epi means the outside. Okay, epi, and then dermis means skin. Okay, so outer epidermis is going to be the first 20 layers of dead cells on our skin. So if you rub your hands on something, you're actually going to leave some dead cells on whatever you touched. All right, along with some other oil and such on top of your skin. But this is the first 20 layers of dead skin cells. Okay, that are kind of like a little barrier between the outside world and your actual skin. Okay, the inner epidermis, made of living cells. Okay, this is where we get our pigment. There's melanin, okay, which is brown pigment, is being produced in cells to protect us against UV radiation. So depending on the amount of melanin in your skin, which is determined by your genetics, okay, you will have a certain type of skin tone. All right, you'll have darker skin if you have more melanin, or you'll have lighter skin if you have less. All right, so dermis. So we have the epidermis, now we have just the dermis. So we're just talking about the middle layer of our skin. This is the inner layer that supports the epidermis, so it's underneath, contains hair follicles, nerve endings, blood vessels, oil and sweat glands. So everything that the skin actually does is located in the dermis. All right, that epidermis is kind of there as a protection, okay? Whereas the dermis is going to actually do everything that skin does. So we got our hair, we have our nerves, we have blood vessels because we need to get blood to the outside parts of our skin, and then we have oil and sweat glands as well. All right. Lastly, we're going to have our hair and our nails, okay, made of a protein called keratin, and then they also provide protection. Okay, so our nails are there to provide protection and some utility, whereas our hair, again, is going to provide UV protection to our head, as well as keep us a little bit warmer than we normally would be otherwise. Okay, so melanin, just talking about it a little more, is made in the melanocytes. As you might remember your osteocytes, okay, when we had to deal with bones, but these melanocytes, they pass these grains of brown pigment onto the upper epidermis because that UV radiation is hitting the upper part of our skin. Therefore, we want to have our melanin, which is how we protect ourselves from UV radiation, on that upper part. That's why as you open up, if you were to get a cut, okay, your skin is not as tan or doesn't have the same pigment on the inside, okay, because that melanin is only on the outside of your skin, okay? Next, we want to talk about a little bit about skin cancer. So this is when we get too much UV radiation on your skin and we have mutations in the DNA and the skin is not able to properly replace itself. And so it'll continue to split, and then we'll have these cells that become a lot of issues. Skin cancer is super popular, especially in careers that spend a lot of time outside. So I highly recommend that you put on sunscreen. Okay, my old baseball coach back in Minnesota, actually, he has a few different types of skin cancer. And so he has to get all these different splotches cut off whenever they appear. So how do you spot skin cancer? Well, there's asymmetry. One half is unlike the other between your skin cells. They look different. Okay, border irregularity, so scalloped or poorly circumscribed border. So that means you see how this isn't like a perfect circle, all right? It's just this weird oblong shape, and it's not symmetrical. So when you split it in half, it looks different. Okay, and there's a variety of colors. So it's different shades other than tan and brown, which is what the melanin would look like. Okay, sometimes white, red, or blue. Okay, as we can see, we got white, red, and blue all around. And then the diameter is larger than 6 millimeters is typically the rule that people use. So the diameter of a pencil eraser. So that's not very big, you guys. It's not very big. And so it can happen pretty frequently, pretty quickly. So we got to take care of our skin now so we don't have to deal with this later. So that is making sure that you have different layers on when you know you're going to be out in the sun to protect your skin from the sun, or putting on sunscreen whenever possible. Okay, so this is a zoomed up view of a sweat gland pore on the surface of the skin. You can see how it's like a little hole that allows water to escape the skin so you can cool yourself down. All right, so here's what a hair follicle looks like. Okay, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's from inside your body, and it latches on. You can see it latches on and stays. You have to pull really hard in order to rip that out. Okay, but typically it's going to stay inside your skin. Okay, so that is a hair follicle. Let's keep going. Muscles attach to hair follicle strands, and they stand up your hair to create a pocket of warm air underneath the surface of the skin. So this happens when you get goosebumps, okay? And so when your hair stands up and you get goosebumps, all right, you actually have a muscle that's working in order to do that. And the purpose of it is to create pockets of warm air near the surface of the skin. I know you feel really cold, but that's because of the warm air pockets, okay? And so it's just a weird thing that your body does to really put you on high alert and get that blood flowing and hopefully warm you up. All right, so that is it for the integumentary system. I would say the most important slide to look at would be this one, looking at the functions of the human integumentary system, and then also this one, so the different parts of the system. And then we will go over how to label a skin diagram later. So the epidermis is the very top layer. The dermis is where everything else is located. And then right below, we're going to have a fatty layer which is that yellow stuff below the dermis. Okay. So, all right, you guys have a great day, and I will catch you later. Bye.